Welcome to the Author's Porch, where every good conversation happens. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride from author to author. We want to give you an experience where you learn and enjoy the conversation. Authors tell you about their journey, you learn about new books, and at the end of the day, you go home with a smile on your face because the Author's Porch is a beacon of light, bringing you home to the family you never knew you had. We hope that you enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Author's Porch, where every great conversation happens, and it happens because we trusted Brendan and Vamsi at Master Talk to show us the power of effective communication. We also make sure we have a great cup of coffee from Third Day Coffee Seguin, a Christ-centered, veteran-owned coffee company. Today on the show, we have Richard Cirulli. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Doing fine.
Awesome. I'm glad that I got your name right. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Yay!
Yeah, well, it took me a while to get it right.
Correct me if I say this wrong as well, Richard. Demitasse?
Oh, Demitasse.
Demitasse Players, which is a charity founded on the mission to write and produce plays to bring awareness to mental health, which I find so inspiring because the world needs more people to bring this type of stuff to the forefront and take the taboo away from it. And that's what the Demitasse Players aim to do, is to remove many taboos of mental illness. They teach people about the disorders and how the illness impacts caregivers, family, and friends. So Richard, thank you so much for being here and for what you do to bring the awareness of that about.
Well, thank you for sharing this time with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I do too. And your book is super cool because I'm thinking, a lot of people, so I know a lot of authors who try to take their book and turn it into a screenplay, but you went from playwright to authoring a full novel. How was that experience? Because a lot of people do it opposite.
Well, that's a good question. I wrote and produced, I wrote probably about 6 plays, original plays, but we had actually produced 4 of them. And the plays were good, it was able to, we got very good reviews, played off Broadway. And, but the thing with plays, it takes a long time to produce them and you have a limited audience. So I thought by writing books and like what we call psychotronic teleplays, I could reach out to a larger audience. So this is my second book. My first book was called The Songs of Roland.
Okay.
And that's really a fantasy fiction. It's takes place over 900 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a 900-year-old love story. So, and that took me into a very different genre. But I challenged myself. So when I wrote this book, I said I want to come back down to earth and write something that many people could relate to. And this is actually a revised edition because when I wrote the first one, I kept some chapters out and I cut some chapters back. My publicist said, "No, put those chapters back in."
Those were the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, and I was just concerned that, being a little new at this, I was a little concerned I was going to be put into the wrong genre because the book is it's an erotic and existential romance.
Mm.
And and the storyline, there's a lot of subplots to it, but there is an underlying theme of mental illness.
Okay.
And so I wrote this book, and I was inspired by it because of a memory I had when I used to live up in the Hudson Valley, in the Cold Spring area, and it's about 2 baby boomers reaching middle age, circa 1992.
Oh, the 90s.
Yeah, the great '90s, and they meet by chance in this coffee shop, just by some, we'll say, act of synchronicity, and
Mm,
they're drawn to each other. There's just this chemistry that, and what really happens is they're both coming from a failed marriage where there's no romance and it's dead for all purposes,
yeah.
and so they're looking to fill that bucket list in life. They have to make this hard decision. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, am I going to have a bucket life of regrets or a bucket life of really great memories?
Right.
So they really engage in this really hot, torrid romance.
Yeah, because I mean, after you leave something that was dead and you have this inflamed just passion, then you want to live all the things you haven't. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the book asks a couple of questions, but one of the questions is, I put it on the cover, that was, is love a cruel game we call happiness?
Oh,
And I thought, people get involved in relationships probably for all the wrong reasons,
mm,
and they actually put themselves through a hell, and they're convincing themselves that they're really happy because there's somewhat of a denial. But in this case, they both of them thought, or they both went into this thinking this is going to be this nice, casual little fling, and,
yeah.
and it's just going to catch up on life, and they fall into a trap of falling in love with each other.
Wow.
Which wasn't part of the plan. It was,
Right. It never is when um, fictional or real life characters want to go into a fling type of relationship.
and it's and they're two very different people.
Mhm.
Elia is, of course, the male character, and he's a sophisticated architect, very well polished, educated, not arrogant, a very ethical person
Mm,
who goes through life, and it's kind of that conundrum you fall into. You actually live everything you were taught as a kid, the golden rule: don't get angry, don't. And he does all this very well. It's just ingrained in him. He's an outlier that marches to the beat of a different drum.
yeah.
And he's not an arrogant person. He can be rather self-effacing.
Mhm.
And his paramour, NES, is the complete opposite. She's an actress, a little bit of a libertine, spirited,
Yeah.
and it makes the argument that harmony is the analogy of the opposites.
So true. Yeah.
So they just seem to knock it off, and they really engage in this over a period of maybe just like 3-4 months, a series of going to, they go down to the, Martinique for a little bit of an excursion where the dress code is smile and sunblock.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just engage in this, and things go very well for them. And so Elia starts suspecting something's not right.
Mm.
And
So there's that thought-provoking moment where things start to twist a little bit in the story, huh?
yeah, he's sensing, something's not right.
Mhm.
That gut feeling people get.
Yeah.
And so I can't say much more because I don't want to give away the plot.
Yeah, don't do that.
But they're and what's interesting is that when I did the revised edition, I did it in the first person,
Okay.
because if you write in the third person's the objective narrative, who's a fly on the wall, and he's sanitizing things. If you write in the first person, you're hearing exactly what that character is going through and what they feel.
Yeah.
So by doing that, the readers get to see what's going on inside everyone's head,
Yeah.
So they know more about the other character than the actual characters in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's fascinating.
so I had a little bit of fun with that. I actually thrown some humor into it too, because when you're existential, oh my God, it's going to be a deep existential book, but it's really not. It really reads very well, and it's just how existential is trying to bring our existence of life into essence,
Right.
and that's what we all try to do, and so Ely is constantly overthinking things. He's always, he's just that type of person.
Hmm.
Uh, but they seem to have a lot of fun together, seem to really enjoy each other's company. But it's also asked the question as the book unravels, and I leave it to the reader as to what is the definition of infidelity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who is the judge and who owns our emotions? Is it a legal system,
Mm.
laws? And so that comes into conflict as well.
Yeah.
And so there's, I mean, at that point, the book takes a turn, and it opens up. I guess it's a little bit of a mystery, I would say.
Yeah. And I love the question that you have on the front of the book where you said, what was the exact quote again about is love really something about happiness? What was the exact quote?
Oh yeah, it's falling in love, a cruel game we call happiness.
Right, because when you're talking about the book, it's true. You're going along and you're just, on cloud nine. Obviously, everyone knows that the infatuation stage, the love, and then boom, you say he starts to get this gut feeling something isn't right.
Yeah,
So there's the cruel reality, right? That moment where something hits you and is this really worth it to some people, or is it the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of love? And I love a good up and down story that kind of
well,
twists.
they feel like this one.
Yeah, I think love itself and the theory of it is fascinating because there's so much to it, and it's all based on the reader, the viewer,
Yeah.
the person living it, the person going through it, so on and so forth. So it sounds very fascinating. Now, when you were writing it, where were you getting the inspirational points from?
Well, I took. I can't say the book is autobiographical fallacy, only because you should have to read the book to figure out why. But the book, I was really highly influenced by personal events in my life,
Okay.
and and so when I used to tell people these stories about my marriage,
Hmm.
people would say, "I just can't believe it." You know, I can't believe you're doing everything right, and how come nothing's working out for you? You know?
Yeah.
And so there was some of that I thought had to. Uh, I think it was good sharing because it made for good, a good story.
Yeah.
And I focused on Ely a little bit more than all of it because he's the existentialist, and and I did a lot of flashbacks.
Mm.
Ely, as he's engaging in this relationship, he's slipping back to his marriage and events that occurred early on in his life.
Hmm.
This will give the reader a chance to see how his character was forged under very difficult, things where, he does everything right, but his morality doesn't serve him well.
Yeah.
So he doesn't abandon it. He just, he's kind of like this crusader type of person on a very small scale, on a personal scale. So I think people would find that amusing because I think a lot of people have experienced that to some degree.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's very relatable because I think throughout almost every individual's life. I can't say every individual because I don't know everybody's lives, right? But most people's life, they have these defining moments that have changed something, or something has forced them to think this way or think that way, or question, that's not even a word, question um, their thought pattern, their thought process, or even their beliefs and values. And I think it's to me it's fascinating. And I've even been through it as well, but I think it's fascinating because it makes you wonder what, why, who, and where, right?
Exactly. That's such a good point because, the trap we all fall into at times is, you go out and you do those good things
Yeah.
and you do something good for somebody and they turn around and they really hammer you. I mean, they really turn on you.
Yeah.
And we've all experienced that to some degree. And then some people will just say, that's it. I'm tired of being a Mr. Nice Guy. Starting tomorrow, I'm just going to worry about myself. And you turn in to the same person that you're mad at.
Yeah.
And so that's a decision we all have to make. Either you sticks to his guns,
Mm.
and if someone, and at the end of the book, it comes out very clear how he responds to, actually throughout the book, how he responds to personal attacks. He doesn't fall into that trap of this is going to change me. I'm going to learn from this. So, but at the end of the book, he really finds quite a surprise waiting for him.
Mm. Oh, that's that hook. That's the hook that makes you just go, okay, what's the name of that book? Let me write it down, because that's the hook that makes you want to go read it right there. Now, when you think back on your life, obviously very well accomplished, playwright, and now you have the books out and many other accomplishments. But when you look back on your life and growing up, was there something that pushed you into writing? Was it something you always knew you were going to go into? Or was your life pointing in another direction and you just kind of stumbled into this part?
Well, that's a very fair question. I was always a natural writer,
Hmm.
and I love the arts, but then, you're married and have kids,
Yep.
and you realize you have to have that day job. So, I actually became a professional student while I was working in the corporate life. And for years I had these really boring jobs like, director of real estate. Then I'd be teaching statistics and economics, all these quantitative subjects. And I just said, I just can't do this anymore. This is really, really boring stuff.
Yeah.
So when I got separated, divorced, I just said, I'm going into the arts.
Mm.
So in that case, it was a very good event for me. I
Mm.
connected with artists, and I really grew as an artist. And but also, as far as mental health, about 6 years ago, I was reading an article about 6 years ago on some statistics, and it said only 17% of adult Americans qualify for being at optimal mental health.
That's
Now,
wild.
I was blown apart by that statistic. You know, I mean, and it was from a very reputable source. And then I started thinking, how many times do we go to a party and you're talking rationally, and you realize if there's 100 people in that room, only 17 are sane, or, well, that explains a lot of when I go to these things, the behavior I encounter, and also I was very fortunate. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. My mother was very attractive. She was brilliant. She was an outgoing person, but she suffered from, of course, this goes back years where it was really taboo, and you were just plain crazy, which is sad. And she
Mhm.
needed help, but she had a undiagnosed Munchausen by proxy disease,
Wow.
on top of depression and a whole series of other illnesses, that she was totally out of control. And Munchausen by proxy is you would pick out one of your children and
Yeah.
abuse them.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people in the audience, that's a technical term. And I was the oldest, so I was in her sights.
Oh, wow.
So I learned at a very young age, when I was about 3 or 4 years old, that this person has serious problems. And I didn't know the word depression, anxiety. I mean, I'm 4 years old. I mean, I can't even spell my name.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it never impacted me. I'm a very strong-willed person. And I just kept a lot of notes on this. So when I wrote my first play, it was about my mother.
Wow.
And it showed all the fascination she did. And that went over very well. I was very surprised at the response I got. It was my first time writing a play. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And so with that, it just launched a passion to bring out mental illness because, one of this, we've all experienced this, it's like having grown up with, I could sense it.
Hmm.
It's not like any psychic type of thing, but you can just watch it.
Yeah. There's certain mannerisms and certain things that you could feel that it's there's just some things that just don't feel right to you.
Yeah. And you learn a very hard lesson. If you have a friend who knows they're slipping down the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
or if they're spouses, and you go up to them and say, wow, you're a good friend of mine. I really love you. Maybe you should. And you know what the answer is. They tell you to go take a hike.
Yeah.
Don't pass judgment. Who the hell do you think you are? And sure enough, 6 months, a year later, you get the call or something like that, and it's just too late.
Yeah.
You know,
It's very sad and disheartening. Yeah. When I was growing up, my mom would have these outbursts, just rage
yeah,
and stuff like that. And it wasn't until after I'd left the house. I was 19. I left the military. I couldn't deal with everything that I'd been growing up with. And then I found out about almost 10 years into the military, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder as well, and things like that. So, but I could always tell, I just felt like this isn't right. This wasn't how life was supposed to be, things like that. So, but then it all started making sense. And that's why I was compelled to study psychology in college because I wanted to understand more. No, I didn't go on and get a doctorate or anything like that. I just wanted to understand the little bit of detail so I could know some things and be able to have a relationship with my mother because it was very estranged, things like that. But there are things that people don't understand when it comes to knowing that lack of control sometimes,
yeah,
and it's not directed towards people. So I think it's phenomenal when you say that your first play was about your mother and about some of the experiences that you went through, and even in your writing, you bring out in your books about the mental health aspect because there's so many things that people don't know. I was introduced to a person, now she's become a friend of mine, and she wrote a book about her journey through bipolar disorder. And unfortunately, she had an extreme version, and she writes her book called My Sanity Quest. And it's her life through bipolar, where she had hallucinations and she was institutionalized a lot. She basically had to fight her way out of being institutionalized. Now she leads a life like you and I, living in our homes, taking care of ourselves instead of being institutionalized. And she writes about that to show other people, you don't have to be tucked away in a corner or hidden because you have a mental illness. You can live a productive lifestyle if more people would pay attention to certain things. So it's very fascinating.
Yeah, it is, and it's good you take that approach because when you start to understand it, because actually my ex-wife developed bipolar adult child of alcoholic behavior when she hit middle age. And at first, you don't know what it is. You're just hearing this anger, the yelling, the screaming, and then I started going to these support groups, and they were very good at bringing out the behavior. And so you're right, you learn about it, and then you learn how to navigate it when you encounter people like that, because you just realize there's certain things you don't say, there's certain conversations you stay away from, and I thought that was one of the well, I learned a lot, but the support groups were very beneficial and really impacted my writing a lot because people were sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was at one session and I was sharing the story, and one fellow said something like, well, did you go up to her and talk to her? Did you tell her she was wrong? Did you do this? And I said, no, I didn't. I said, I've learned that when people make that attack, I've learned this from my mother, is that you don't listen to their tongue, you listen to their heart, because they're a wounded animal. They're in a corner and they're striking out and they don't know it. And he said something like, well, you have the responsibility to tell her that. And I said, if I told you that, what would you tell me? And he said, I'd tell you to go blank yourself. I says, well, thank you. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to navigate this, but I'm getting some mixed signals here, guys.
Yeah. So far, your plays are wrapped around bringing mental health to the stage and breaking the taboo. And you have 2 books out, and they have some mental health elements in it, but it's not the main focus. Now, is that something that you will continue to write, or are there other genres that you feel that you're going to explore?
Well, I want to stick with the mental illness, or what I'll call the frail human condition.
I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to write that down.
That's a great line, and because when you look at it and you watch human behavior, the running joke is, people will say, boy, the world is in such a mess. And I would say, considering our human condition, I'm surprised we made it this far.
That is so true. Yeah.
Yeah, so, what I tried to do is on my second play, I had a woman friend, a platonic woman friend, who she was an interesting person, but she had a slew of problems, and I don't drink, and she was a drinker. And that's I'm not passing judgment. And she would constantly ride me about how I don't drink and, da da da. So one night she says, she calls me up one night and says, I spoke with my partner, and he's working late tonight. And she was about 20 years younger than me. This goes back a few years. And he told me, go hang out with Rich. He's a good influence on you. And I feel comfortable that you're with him on a Friday night so you don't get yourself in trouble. So I became a de facto chaperone at the time, like 50 years old. So
Wow.
So I meet her at this restaurant bar, and I'm sitting at the table. She says, no, come on, come up to the bar. You don't even sit at a bar. I said, I'm not afraid of bars. It's not me.
And not your scene. Yeah.
No, it's just not me. So I go up and I order a cranberry juice. Of course, she's like, can't you order a super glass of wine with me? And I said, I'll stick with the cranberry juice because we both drove here in different cars and I got to drive home.
Yeah.
And Murphy's Law, I'll be the type of guy who just has a sip and I'll get pulled over. So I'm keeping it clean.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to her, and she says, I got problems. I said, yes, you shared them with me. So as I'm talking with her, she says, I have DID, dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, that's a new one for me. So, I mean, she's a very attractive woman. She's Nordic, and she has her first glass of wine, and she's opening up. She's getting very bubbly and laughing and joking. She gets the second glass of wine. She looks at me. She had her hair in a little barrette, and she just like pulls it and just lets her hair hang down low. Gives me this dirty look, pushes me aside, says, get out of my way. And she walks down the bar, and there's this guy there who's probably like 25. He had biceps about as big as my waist. And she goes up to him, hits on him, and she runs out to his car. And she comes back an hour later.
Oh.
And I says, well, I'm not going to be a chaperone for this one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And she was out of her, I mean, her whole personality changed. I was talking to her. It was like I was talking to a different person.
Oh man.
And this is what they call DID.
Yeah.
And actually, I encountered that with other people throughout life. And you go to a party or a gathering, and you see a husband and wife, and you see either one of the spouses when they get to the party, or one of the partners, basically jettisons his partner, and then starts running. If it's a man, goes over to the women, starts talking to him, ignores his wife or partner, and it works either way.
Yeah.
And I would see this, and I would, once again, you tell people, someone should really talk to this person. They're going down that slippery slope, and what's the answer? Well, she just likes a few good drinks, and she's just having a good time, and excuse. And then 4 months later, you hear that they're getting into a divorce because there were affairs involved and everything else.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote a play about that called Rondelay.
Oh wow.
And it dealt with that, and so I try to keep those themes in front of people because, as we know, we're familiar with those terms,
mm-hmm.
and we're conscious of where most people aren't.
Right.
Sometimes I tell people, when you're in these micro moments of life, you got to keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
And understand what's going on around you. A lot of people are just oblivious. And I said, if you keep your eyes open and, you can make life better for yourself and also be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
So my plays and books try to hit that nerve in people, like Demitasse Divorce. There's a lot of things in there, like when you read, if you look at, was it 50 Shades of Grey?
Yes.
Great bestseller. I read a couple of chapters. I did not read the whole book, and I never criticize a fellow writer or artist. I think it did well in helping women feel comfortable with their sexuality, and I think it served a very good purpose. But most of those books are just physical sexuality, and it's just not the relationship that goes on between their eroticism,
Right.
So I wanted to really. When I approached the book, I really wanted to bring that element into it and have, and you hear people in the back of their head, what they're thinking, what should I do? How should I advance this? And I think that's important for, for people to see.
Yeah, you focused on the mental aspect of all of it versus the physical aspect of it.
Well, there's a lot of hot scenes in here, so
yeah, the physical's there, but you made sure that they could also understand the mental aspect.
Yeah,
versus taking the mental out and only having the physical, which is what 90% of humans do because we're physical minded. Yeah, and we're we don't observe enough.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people are so quick to respond, so quick to jump in the conversation instead of just observe. You can learn so much by observing and paying attention and just listen.
No, no, no. You're so right. I mean, we've all been at parties, and I was at this one gathering, and somebody said, "You know, Rich, you're awfully quiet tonight." And I said, "Well, you never got hurt by things you don't say." And and what was happening is like people were throwing out these, just talking off the top of their head. And I said, they're going to regret this in the morning. They're just they
Yeah.
just want to engage a conversation just so they could be a part of it. But they don't better themselves for doing it. They think they're saying something that's going to make them look like they're brilliant, and they're just shooting themselves in the foot. And just watching this, and it's hard not to chuckle.
Sometimes being a fly on the wall when you're sober at a party can be the best entertainment ever.
Oh, yes, yes, I really couldn't agree more. And I was in this relationship that broke off about 4 years ago, and I'm not a drinker, and she was a drinker, and all her friends were drinkers. So, and that's fine. I'm not casting judgment, but you'd go over their house, and they would, run over to the wet bar, and after a half hour, just listening to those conversations.
Yeah.
And you just keep these mental notes, and you say, "Oh, there's another play in here. There's another book here."
Yeah. You can definitely find a lot of material by listening to people and paying attention to. I mean, I find a lot of stuff by watching my dogs. I know that sounds crazy, but I pay attention to my dogs and the looks that they give. A storyline happens based off of the way they communicate through their gestures. Obviously, I can't hear them talk, but I make up the stories of them talking to me. So imagine listening to a human conversation, right? Because I stay home with my dogs 90% of the time. I enjoy their company more than most humans. But listening to human conversations, and that's what people should do more, just listen. And there's so much out there to listen to. And humans are fascinating individuals, the way
Yeah,
our minds think.
yeah.
So, when did this book release? This was, I'm gonna missay it again. Demitasse
Demitasse divorce.
Demitasse divorce. I knew I was going to say it wrong again. I knew the divorce word. I know that word very fondly because of my previous, not my husband now. Thank God, we're in it to win it. But Demitasse divorce. When did this one release?
The revised edition was released last year.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
And it's available. It's available wide everywhere, right?
yeah. We can get it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and ebook.
Okay, very interesting. And we've got the nobleman who doesn't let all the things that's happening around him change who he is, which is admirable, very admirable, and some saucy things happening. And the frail human condition. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm gonna keep that. So if you had any advice, not just from the playwright or the author standpoint, but just the human or any of those standpoints, for somebody who wants to write, who has this story inside of them or a story they heard at a bar, if you had any advice for anybody, what would that advice be? Just to keep going.
Well, I would tell everyone you have to be yourself,
Mm.
and know who you are, and don't follow that hive mind mentality.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, you see people, they want so much to be accepted, and they'll try right to a group, and they will give up their beliefs and everything else just so they can fit into this group. And I've always been a very independent thinker. And I just don't let people. If people are going to influence me, it's because they done something good or something right. But I wouldn't really let people own my mind. There was this Greek philosopher. I hope I'm pronouncing right. Epictetus, and he
Mm.
was talking about this, and he said, we would never allow someone to put shackles on us and own our body and be a slave, but we quickly give over our minds to people
Yeah.
without much thought. And so I would tell people, know who you are, know your true self, be true to your true self, and don't put on facades about yourself. And if you are who you are, and then you go out and you strive to improve yourself every day, you really grow as a person. As I remember when I was like, before I retired, I would tell people, I said, you know, your friends in another 10 years, 5 to 10 years, will become very angry people. And she says, why? I says, they went their entire life following the hive mind, went to school, got their degree, bought the house, went for the 2-week vacation, cut the grass, and they did nothing for themselves. They never really challenged themselves. I said, for my entire life, even when I was in the corporate world, I was writing poetry and writing songs. And I said, so I lived a full life. So when I hit like 60, people said, look at Rich. What a snob he is. He writes books, he writes plays, he writes songs. And all I do is sit around the house, grilling hamburgers because I don't. And, and that's a trap so many people fall into. Like when they're in their 40s, they think they're going to be in their 40s forever.
Yeah.
And they don't look at really developing themselves as a person and say, what could I really do? And I remember this one fellow said, every time I see you, you're doing something different. I come over, you're doing watercolors, you're doing pen and ink, you're writing a book, you must be really smart. And I said, no, not really. If I was smart, I would own the island in the Caribbean.
Right.
I had to go to school for 40 years because I'm smart. You can't teach me anything. I still can't download this stupid app.
Those damn apps.
So I just said, instead of whining and bitching to me, tomorrow just draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
And do it every day. And after a year, you'll be able to draw something.
Yeah.
So spend that 15 minutes doing that instead of throwing stones at me. And they're like, wow, I never really thought of that. But as the frail human condition, people like to attack.
Yeah.
So yeah, that my advice was, was that Greek philosopher. It slips me. But I don't want to mention because I probably get it wrong.
Epictetus? I'm going to look it up afterwards and see where I can. I'm going to actually put it in the comments too.
Yeah, know thyself.
Yeah. That's great advice. That hive, and I also wrote down hive mentality because I see that a lot. I see that. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you have a group of like-minded individuals, right? That's okay. But if you're changing yourself to fit into that,
Exactly.
that's different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want that support group, but you want people that will support you and your individual thinking.
Yeah.
I have friends that are, extreme right, extreme left, whatever. And we could sit down, talk, have a discourse, and never get into an argument.
Yeah.
And that's so enriching as opposed to going to some place and just say, I'm just going to agree with you because I want you to like me. I want you to accept me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fascinating when you can talk about the polarizing subjects with somebody who has a different opinion than you and still have a meaningful conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. And that's so inspirational, and you grow so much because, you hear somebody else's opinion or view, and you could learn more, learn from that experience as opposed to arguing. And so, I mean, those are just great encounters in life, and really, really, in those little micro moments in life that you say, yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. Richard, I've had a fantastic time conversating with you. Can you tell
Oh,
everybody where they can reach you if they want to check out your book, a play, or maybe have one of these conversations with you?
yeah, okay. Well, you can go to my website. It's www.demitasseplayers.com.
Mhm.
Or you could just Google Richard Cirulli, Cirulli, and that should take you to the Demitasse site. If
Awesome.
people want to reach me, I do look forward to emails and conversing with people. I'm not that distant, so I'm going to give you my personal email. There's an email on the website, but that's the troops email. But it's Prof Prof Cirulli Cirulli at optonline.net, and I'm looking forward to hearing from people and get their thoughts. And I do respond to my emails, and I look
Awesome.
forward to them.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure you email Richard and have that very insightful conversation about the frail human condition, hive mind, and all the great things that he has talked about on the show. And I'm sure there's many, many more to talk about. If you're watching the show, either on YouTube or Facebook, you can see that wonderful, beautiful collection of books that is behind him. And I just want to go over there and read every single book on the shelf.
No,
And
you
I've had a fan. So what do you have coming up? What is your next project that you're working on?
Well, I did my first movie last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an indie movie, and we're going to release it in September. Uh, and it's we're going to have like a fundraiser screening in Westchester. And I had some fun with this. People say, "Oh, Rich, you write such deep, deep work, but in your private life, you're a really funny guy." And people are going to think that you're this nihilistic type of person who's just you know. So I said, all right, I'll write a. I think I'll write a funny movie. So, uh, so it's called An Existential Date,
Oh man.
and it's two college professors in middle age who meet at a college bar after they go online dating service for existentially us. And as they start talking about philosophy, they both get sexually aroused. So it's like giving the nerd some credit, It's
Yeah.
like, well, I used to be a college professor, so that stereotype is like college professors don't know how to have fun. I don't know about that. I said I could write books about that.
Well, where's it going to be released at?
We're going to have it at Westchester. We're doing our initial release, and then I'm trying to get it marketed, but we're going to put it on the website and YouTube.
Okay.
So
You
I
should
would.
try to get it on Amazon Prime.
Oh yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, try to get it on Amazon Prime. I know of a friend of mine who got some of his stuff on Amazon Prime. I don't know the process of doing that myself because I'm not big time like that and I've never written anything like that. But yeah, definitely get it because that would be superb. I want to watch that actually. That would because I love the line of that because people look at college professors or teachers and they think, oh well, they wouldn't know anything. But I mean, there's a whole life. Come on. I mean, yeah. So I totally get it because I'm sometimes I'm a 15-year-old girl at heart. I have pink hair because I love pink and vampires, and then other times I'm this big goofy nerd and I totally get it. So, yeah, I love the premise of it. It's definitely something that I would get a kick out of.
Yeah, when I wrote the script, I took it to the board, and they're big fans of my work. So one board member said, "I don't know, Rich. I read the script, and I don't think so." So, well, when we did the rehearsal for the movie, he starts rolling over in laughter. And I said, you can't, yeah, you got to just feel it, you know? So, yeah, so I'm probably going to upload it to the website in about 2 months.
Okay. Well, I'll keep my eye out on the website to try to make sure that I catch it when it gets up there.
Okay.
Super excited for you, Richard. I've had a great conversation. This has been a blast
Oh,
learning more about what you do and in the mental health realm and bringing that to the forefront and letting people know, look, you know what? It's okay to talk about those things. It's okay to understand them more so that you can live around people who suffer from certain things and understand more about what they're going through. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, CJ. I really appreciate it. What a great conversation. I don't do many of these in life, so.
Well, I appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to come back each week and watch us either live or on the podcast right here on Facebook. You can ask Alexa or Siri to play our latest episode. Head to our website and catch the latest issue of the magazine, which came out in January, because guess what? On April 4th, we have another release coming out. It's up for pre-order right now over on Amazon. The electronic version is up for pre-order, and then the paperback will come out on the 4th of April. We want to continue making authors' dreams come true by providing them a platform to shine. We'll see you guys next time. And if you appreciate conversations like we do and you want to become a better speaker, visit our friends Brendan and Vamsi over at mastertalk.ca, where they teach you how to use the power of your voice. Don't forget, stay awake with a nice cup of coffee from Third Day Coffee Seguin. Best cup of coffee on this side of heaven. That's thirddaycoffeeseguin.com. Until next time, my friends, I'm CJ. That's Richard. Go read his books, everybody, and write on. Bye, Richard. Bye, everybody. See you later.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
The Author's Porch is a certified.
Is that?
The Author's Porch is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share, and subscribe.